The text message glowed on my phone screen like a neon sign in hell. Having so much fun. Wish you were here. Not. I stared at those words while sitting in my ambulance outside St. Mary's Hospital at 3 in the morning, having just finished a 12-hour shift, pulling broken bodies out of car wrecks. My wife Bianca had sent this gem from what she claimed was a girls' night out with her sister Monica and their friend group. The location tag showed Velvet Lounge, the upscale club downtown where she'd been spending more and more time lately. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Owen Martinez, and I've been a paramedic in this Rust Belt city for 8 years. I save lives for a living, but apparently I couldn't save my own marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Another rough one tonight, partner," said Jake, my ambulance partner, as he climbed into the driver's seat. "That motorcycle accident on 5th Street was brutal." "Yeah," I muttered, still staring at Bianca's message. Some people just don't know when to slow down. Jake glanced at my phone. "Trouble at home again?" I pocketed the device. "Nothing I can't handle." But I was lying. Things had been deteriorating for months. Bianca, who worked as a part-time event coordinator, had been staying out later and later, always with her sister Monica. Monica was a successful real estate agent who lived in the wealthy part of town and never let anyone forget it. She'd made it clear from day one that she thought her sister had married beneath her station. "A paramedic?" Monica had said at our wedding reception, loud enough for half the room to hear. Well, I suppose someone has to do the blue-collar jobs. Bianca had laughed it off then, but over the years Monica's constant commentary about my limited earning potential and lack of ambition had clearly taken root. My wife started making little comments about our apartment being too small, our car being too old, our vacations being too modest. When I got home that night, Bianca was already asleep, reeking of expensive perfume and alcohol. I found her purse on the kitchen counter, and curiosity got the better of me. Inside were receipts from Velvet Lounge, not just for drinks, but for a private VIP room rental, for 4 hours. The next morning, I confronted her over coffee. "How was your girls' night?" I asked casually. "Oh, you know how it is," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Monica wanted to celebrate closing another big sale, so we hit a few places. Nothing too crazy." "Velvet Lounge seems pretty upscale for nothing too crazy." Her head snapped up. "Were you tracking me?" "I saw your location tag on the message you sent me, the one about wishing I wasn't there." Bianca's face flushed. "That was just a joke, Owen. God, you're so sensitive lately." "A 4-hour VIP room rental doesn't sound like a joke." "How do you know about—" She caught herself. "Look, Monica paid for everything. She wanted to treat us to something nice for once, instead of hanging out in dive bars or our cramped little apartment." There it was, the subtle dig about our living situation, our lifestyle, our life together. "I work my ass off to provide for us," I said quietly. "I know you do." Her voice softened slightly. "But Owen, don't you want more? Don't you want to be able to afford nice things, nice places? Monica's been telling me about investment opportunities, ways to make real money." "What kind of opportunities?" "Real estate, mostly. She thinks I have a natural talent for sales. She's offered to help me get my license, maybe join her agency." I should have been supportive. A good husband would have encouraged his wife's career ambitions. But something in her tone, the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes, set off alarm bells. "That sounds great," I said. "Just be careful about mixing business with family." She finally looked at me directly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I just know Monica can be intense." Bianca's expression hardened. "Monica has been nothing but generous to us. She's successful, she's smart, and she's trying to help me better myself. Maybe you should be grateful instead of suspicious." The conversation ended there, but the tension lingered. Over the next few weeks, Bianca threw herself into studying for her real estate license. She spent most evenings at Monica's house, claiming they were working on practice exams and market research. When she was home, she seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone and talking about properties and clients and commission structures. I tried to be supportive, but the distance between us kept growing. Our conversations became superficial, our physical intimacy practically non-existent. When I suggested we take a weekend trip together, she said she couldn't spare the time from her studies. When I offered to help quiz her on real estate law, she said Monica had already created a comprehensive study system. Everything revolved around Monica. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in October. I'd just finished a particularly brutal shift, a house fire with multiple casualties, including a child who didn't make it. I came home emotionally drained, needing comfort, needing my wife. Bianca was getting ready to go out, applying makeup in our bedroom mirror. "Rough day?" she asked, not turning around. "The worst. A little girl died in my ambulance tonight, 7 years old." She paused, meeting my eyes in the mirror. "I'm sorry, baby, that's horrible. Can you stay in tonight? I could really use—" "I can't. Monica's introducing me to some potential clients at this networking event. It's important for my career. Bianca, please, I need you here tonight." She turned around, and for a moment I thought she might change her mind. Then her phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and shook her head. "I can't let Monica down. She's doing so much for me, for us. This is about our future, Owen. What about our present? What about right now, when your husband needs you? Don't be selfish. You know how important this is to me." Selfish. The word hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent the last 8 years running toward burning buildings and car crashes, pulling people back from death, working holidays and weekends and double shifts to pay our bills. But wanting my wife's comfort after watching a child die made me selfish. "Fine," I said quietly. "Go." She kissed my cheek, a perfunctory gesture, and left me alone with my grief and growing suspicions. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I started paying attention, really paying attention, to the details of Bianca's new life. I didn't set out to become a detective, but 8 years as a paramedic had taught me to notice things others missed. The small details that could mean the difference between life and death. Now I turned that same scrutiny toward my marriage, and what I found made me freeze. It started with the credit card statements. Bianca had always handled our finances, claiming she was better with numbers. I'd trusted her, never bothering to look closely at the monthly bills. But now, sitting at our kitchen table with 6 months of statements spread out before me, I saw a pattern that made my stomach churn. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel charges in the middle of the day, purchases at lingerie stores and high-end boutiques, all on days when she claimed to be studying with Monica or showing properties to clients. The amounts were staggering. We'd gone from having a modest savings account to being nearly maxed out on 3 credit cards. When had this happened? How had I not noticed? My phone rang, interrupting my investigation. Jake's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, partner, you coming to Murphy's tonight? It's Danny's birthday, remember?" Murphy's Tavern was our usual hangout spot, a dive bar near the hospital where all the first responders gathered after tough shifts. Danny Rodriguez was one of our closest friends, a firefighter I'd worked alongside on countless emergency calls. "I'll be there," I said, gathering up the credit card statements. I needed to get out of the apartment, needed to be around people who understood what real work looked like. Murphy's was packed when I arrived. The usual crowd of paramedics, firefighters, cops, and ER nurses filled the dimly lit space, their laughter and war stories creating a comfortable buzz. These were my people, the ones who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. "Owen!" Danny called out from a corner booth. "Get over here, man! We're just telling Jake about that warehouse fire last month." I grabbed a beer and joined the group. For the first time in weeks, I felt myself relaxing. These conversations, these relationships, this was real. This mattered. "So where's Bianca tonight?" asked Sarah, one of the ER nurses. "Haven't seen her around in forever." "She's pursuing a new career," I said carefully. "Real estate, spending a lot of time studying and networking." "That's great," said Danny. "Always thought she was too smart to be stuck doing event planning forever." "Yeah, her sister Monica is helping her get established. Monica's pretty successful in the business." I noticed a few exchanged glances around the table, but before I could ask about it, the conversation moved on to other topics. We spent the next few hours sharing stories, playing pool, and pretending that the weight of our jobs didn't sometimes crush us. It was nearly midnight when I finally headed home, feeling better than I had in weeks. But as I walked into our apartment, I found Bianca waiting for me, and she was furious. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded. "Danny's birthday party at Murphy's, I told you about it last week." "No, you didn't. I've been calling you for hours." I checked my phone. Sure enough, there were 6 missed calls and a dozen text messages, all increasingly frantic. "Sorry, it was loud in there. I didn't hear the phone." "I needed you tonight, Owen. Monica introduced me to this major developer and he wants to discuss a big project. I was trying to tell you the good news." "That's great, honey. Tell me about it." But instead of excitement, I saw something else in her eyes. Guilt, maybe? Or fear. "It doesn't matter now. The moment's past." She turned away from me. "Sometimes I feel like you don't care about my success at all." "That's not true." "Isn't it? You never ask about my work, never show interest in what I'm learning. It's like you want me to stay stuck in my old life forever." I wanted to point out that she'd been dismissive every time I'd tried to engage with her new career, but I was too tired to fight. "I'm sorry. Tell me about the developer." "Forget it." She headed toward our bedroom. "I'm going to bed." I stayed up for another hour, staring at those credit card statements and trying to make sense of what was happening to us. When I finally went to bed, Bianca was already asleep, or pretending to be. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Bianca would leave early for property showings or client meetings, come home late smelling like expensive perfume and wine, and deflect any questions about her day. Meanwhile, the credit card bills kept climbing, and our savings account hit zero. I decided to do some investigating of my own. Monica's real estate agency had a website with photos of all their agents. I scrolled through the listings, looking for any mention of Bianca. Nothing. I called the office, claiming to be a potential client interested in working with Bianca Martinez. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said. "We don't have anyone by that name working here." "Are you sure? She's Monica Castellanos' sister?" "Oh, you mean Monica Castellanos, right. Yes, she's one of our top agents, but I don't believe she has any family members on staff." Castellanos, right. Monica was married? In all the years I'd known her, she'd never mentioned a husband. Bianca had never mentioned Monica being married either. I spent my next day off conducting surveillance, something I never thought I'd do to my own wife. I followed Bianca when she left for what she claimed was a property showing in the suburbs. Instead of heading to any residential area, she drove straight to the Marriott downtown. I parked across the street and watched as she walked into the hotel lobby, not like someone conducting business, but like someone who knew exactly where she was going. 20 minutes later, Monica emerged from the same entrance, followed by a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, probably in his 40s. They got into Monica's BMW and drove away. An hour later, Bianca came out alone, looking disheveled and checking her phone constantly. She got in her car and drove to a Starbucks, where she sat for another hour, apparently composing text messages. When she came home that evening, she told me about the difficult clients she'd been showing houses to all day, how demanding they were, how exhausting the whole process had been. I nodded and made sympathetic noises, but inside I was dying. My wife was lying to me, probably cheating on me, definitely hiding something major. And somehow, Monica was at the center of it all. That weekend, while Bianca was at another networking event, I decided to do some deeper digging. I drove to Monica's house, a sprawling McMansion in the most expensive neighborhood in town. The driveway was empty, but I could see lights on inside. I was about to leave when a car pulled up, not Monica's BMW, but a silver Lexus. The same man from the hotel got out, used a key to let himself into the house like he lived there. So Monica was married, or at least living with someone. Why had this been kept secret from us? Why had Bianca never mentioned Monica's husband or boyfriend? The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. Monica, the successful real estate agent who looked down on my blue-collar job. The mysterious man, the hotel meetings, the mounting credit card debt, Bianca's constant lies and evasions. I drove home with a sick feeling in my stomach, knowing that my marriage was probably over, but not yet understanding the full scope of what was happening to me. That understanding would come soon enough. The truth hit me like a freight train on a Tuesday morning in November. I'd been scheduled for a day shift, but my partner called in sick, so I found myself with an unexpected day off. Bianca had already left for what she claimed was an important client meeting, kissing me goodbye with what I now recognized as guilt rather than affection. I decided to surprise her with lunch. Maybe if I made an effort to be part of her new world, we could bridge the growing gap between us. I stopped by her favorite deli and picked up sandwiches, then drove to the address she'd given me for her client meeting. It was another hotel, the Hampton Inn on the east side of town. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, telling myself there had to be an innocent explanation. Maybe she was meeting clients who were from out of town. Maybe this was normal in the real estate business. Maybe I was being paranoid and jealous for no reason. Then I saw Monica's BMW pull into the parking lot, followed immediately by the silver Lexus I'd seen at her house. The man got out first, and even from a distance, I could see he was handsome in that polished, expensive way that made guys like me feel inadequate. Monica emerged from her car, and they embraced like lovers, not business partners. They walked into the hotel together, and my heart started pounding. Where was Bianca? Was she already inside? What the hell was going on? I waited another 10 minutes before my phone buzzed with a text from Bianca. Client meeting running long. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you. Love me. The words felt like acid. I was about to leave when I saw them coming out of the hotel. All three of them. Bianca, Monica, and the mystery man, laughing and talking like old friends. No, not friends. There was something intimate about the way they moved together, the way the man's hand lingered on Bianca's back, the way Monica watched them with a satisfied smile. They stood by their cars for a few more minutes, and I could see Bianca and the man exchanging phone numbers. Then, Monica said something that made all three of them laugh, and they went their separate ways. I followed Bianca, staying far enough back to avoid detection. Instead of coming home, she drove to an upscale shopping center and spent 2 hours buying clothes and jewelry with credit cards that were probably already maxed out. When she finally came home, she hid the shopping bags in her car and told me she'd spent the day looking at commercial properties with demanding clients. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe beside me, wondering how long this had been going on and what exactly this was. Was she having an affair with the mystery man? Was Monica facilitating it somehow? Were they involved in some kind of business scheme that required secrecy and hotel meetings? The next morning, after Bianca left for another client meeting, I made a decision that would change everything. I called in a favor from my friend Rick, who worked in the police department's cybercrimes unit. I need you to help me figure out what my wife is really doing, I told him over coffee. I think she's lying to me about everything, but I can't prove it. Rick was a good friend, someone I'd saved from a heart attack 2 years earlier when he'd collapsed during a pickup basketball game. He owed me his life, literally, and he knew it. What kind of help are you talking about? he asked carefully. Phone records, credit card activity, maybe some surveillance. I think she's having an affair, but there's more to it than that. Her sister's involved somehow, and there's money missing from our accounts. Rick studied my face for a long moment. You sure you want to go down this road, Owen? Sometimes it's better not to know. I need to know. I can't keep living like this. He nodded slowly. Give me a few days. I'll see what I can find out. 3 days later, Rick called me with information that shattered what was left of my world. Your wife isn't having an affair, he said. It's worse than that. We met at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and the coffee was strong enough to wake anyone. Rick spread a folder full of documents across our table, his expression grim. The man you saw is named David Wright. He's Monica's husband, and he's a real estate developer. But he's not the legitimate kind. What do you mean? He's been under investigation by the FBI for running investment scams. He finds middle-class couples with decent credit and savings, convinces them to invest in fake real estate deals, then disappears with their money. And Bianca? She's not his victim, Owen. She's his accomplice. Rick showed me phone records proving that Bianca had been in constant contact with David for months, long before she'd started talking about getting her real estate license. He showed me bank records revealing that our savings hadn't just disappeared. It had been transferred to offshore accounts controlled by David's shell companies. But that's not the worst part, Rick continued. They've been using your identity too. Credit cards, loans, even a second mortgage on your apartment that you probably don't know about. You're on the hook for about $200,000 in debt that you never agreed to. The room started spinning. How is that possible? Bianca had access to all your personal information, social security number, bank account details, everything a person needs to forge documents. And Monica provided the real estate expertise to make it all look legitimate. I stared at the evidence spread out before me, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. My wife hadn't just cheated on me emotionally or physically. She'd stolen my identity, destroyed my credit, and left me financially ruined. And she'd done it all while pretending to love me, while letting me comfort her and support her and believe in our future together. There's more, Rick said quietly. They're planning to disappear soon. David's been moving money out of the country, and Bianca's been preparing too. She applied for a passport last month using her maiden name. How long do I have? Based on the pattern we're seeing, probably less than a week. Once they clean out the last of the accounts they've opened in your name, they'll vanish. I sat there in that diner booth, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt something inside me break. Not just my heart, that had been breaking for months. Something deeper. My faith in people, in love, in the basic assumption that the person you share your bed with isn't actively trying to destroy your life. What are my options? I asked. Rick gathered up the documents. Legally, you can file charges, try to recover some of the money, probably get divorced. But realistically, once they disappear with the cash, you'll be lucky to get back 10 cents on the dollar, and proving your innocence in all this will take years. What about stopping them before they disappear? That's not really my department, Owen. That's more like personal justice territory. He gave me a meaningful look, and I understood. The law could only do so much, especially when the criminals were smart enough to stay one step ahead of the system. But there were other kinds of justice. I drove home that night knowing that my marriage was over, my finances were destroyed, and my wife was planning to abandon me to deal with the consequences of crimes I didn't even know had been committed. But I also knew something that Bianca, Monica, and David didn't know. I knew the truth. And I had a week to figure out what to do with it. The old Owen would have confronted Bianca directly, would have tried to work things out, would have trusted the system to make things right. But the old Owen was gone, eliminated by spreadsheets full of forged documents and hotel surveillance footage of his wife planning his destruction. The new Owen was going to be much more creative. I spent the next 2 days planning my approach while maintaining the facade of ignorant husband. Bianca continued her charade of real estate meetings and networking events, coming home each night with increasingly elaborate stories about difficult clients and promising deals. Meanwhile, I used my connections in the emergency services community to gather more intelligence about her operation. My friend Danny, the firefighter, had a brother who worked in banking. Through him, I learned that David Wright had been flagged by multiple financial institutions for suspicious activity, but he was careful enough to stay just within legal boundaries. The scam was sophisticated. They would identify targets through Monica's real estate contacts, then slowly gain their trust before convincing them to invest in non-existent development projects. What made it particularly cruel was how they selected their victims. Middle-class couples who worked honest jobs, saved their money, and dreamed of a better future. People exactly like me. But I had advantages they didn't know about. 8 years as a paramedic had given me a network of friends in law enforcement, healthcare, and city services. More importantly, it had taught me to stay calm under pressure and think clearly in crisis situations. On Thursday night, I decided it was time to make my move. Bianca was getting ready for another client dinner when I walked into our bedroom and sat down on the bed. "We need to talk," I said quietly. She paused in applying her lipstick. "Can it wait? Monica's expecting me in 20 minutes. "No, it can't wait, and Monica isn't expecting you anywhere." The lipstick slipped in her hand, leaving a red smear across her cheek. "What are you talking about?" "I know about David Wright. I know about the investment scam. I know about the money you've stolen from our accounts and the loans you've taken out in my name." For a moment, her face went completely blank. Then, to my surprise, she started laughing. "Oh, Owen, sweet, naive Owen, you have no idea what you're talking about. I have phone records, bank statements, and surveillance footage. I know everything." The laughter died on her lips. "You've been spying on me? I've been trying to figure out why my wife has been lying to me for months and why we're suddenly $200,000 in debt." She set down the lipstick and turned to face me fully. When she spoke, her voice was different, colder, more calculating than I'd ever heard it. "You want to know the truth, Owen? Fine. Here's the truth. I've been miserable in this marriage for years. Miserable living in this tiny apartment, driving that piece of shit car, watching you come home acting like you're some kind of hero." The words hit me like physical blows, but I kept my voice steady. "So you decided to steal from me?" "I decided to take control of my own life. Monica showed me what was possible, what I could have if I wasn't tied down to a paramedic's salary and a paramedic's dreams. By committing fraud, by being smart, by recognizing an opportunity when it presented itself." She stood up, and I could see the person she'd become, or maybe had always been. "David offered me a chance to make real money, to live the life I deserve. All I had to do was provide some initial investment capital. Our money, my credit, my identity. Money we would never have been able to use for anything important anyway. At least this way, it's going towards something that matters." I stared at this woman I'd been married to for 4 years, this person I'd thought I loved, and realized I'd never really known her at all. "What happens to me when you disappear?" I asked. "You'll figure it out. You're resourceful." She picked up her purse and checked her phone. "I really do have to go now. David's waiting." "Actually, no. David's not waiting anywhere." She froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I called the FBI this morning and gave them everything I know about your operation. David Wright was arrested about 2 hours ago at his office. Monica's in custody, too." The color drained from Bianca's face. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone and showed her a news article I'd bookmarked. "Real estate developer arrested in investment fraud scheme. It's already making the local news." She grabbed the phone, reading frantically. I watched her face cycle through disbelief, panic, and finally rage. "You bastard," she whispered. "You destroyed everything." "I destroyed a criminal enterprise that was using my identity to steal money from innocent people." Those people were idiots who deserved what they got. And you... She threw my phone against the wall, shattering the screen. You were supposed to be too stupid to figure it out. There it was. The final insult. The last piece of truth I needed to hear. In her mind, I'd never been a partner or even a worthy opponent. I'd been a mark, a useful idiot whose only value was his clean credit and trusting nature. Pack a bag, I said calmly. You need to leave tonight. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home too. Actually, it's not. The lease is in my name, and I want you out. You can go to a hotel, go to a friend's house, or go turn yourself into the FBI, but you can't stay here. You can't kick me out. I have rights. You forfeited those rights when you committed identity theft and fraud. Leave now, or I'll call the police and have you arrested. For a moment, I thought she might fight me physically. Her hands were clenched into fists, her face twisted with fury. But then her phone started buzzing with what I assumed were frantic calls from other members of their criminal network, and reality set in. She grabbed a suitcase and started throwing clothes into it, muttering curses under her breath. This isn't over, Owen. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you've done. The people David works with don't just disappear when one operation goes bad. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you the truth. You've made enemies you can't handle. 20 minutes later, she was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and the wreckage of our life together. I sat in the sudden silence of our apartment, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, and tried to process what had just happened. My marriage was over. My finances were destroyed. And according to Bianca's parting words, I might have bigger problems coming. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The lies were over. The pretending was over. Whatever came next, at least I would face it with my eyes open. I picked up the pieces of my shattered phone and started making a list of everything I needed to do. Cancel credit cards, change passwords, contact banks, file police reports, find a lawyer. It would take months, maybe years, to clean up the mess Bianca had made of my life. But I had something she didn't expect. The support of my real friends. The people who'd stood by me through 8 years of emergency calls and crisis situations. People like Danny, Rick, Sarah, and Jake. People who understood what loyalty meant, what honest work looked like, what it meant to have someone's back when things got tough. As I started making phone calls, I realized that Bianca had done me a favor in the cruelest possible way. She'd shown me who my real friends were and who I really was when everything was stripped away. I was a survivor, and I was just getting started. 3 weeks after Bianca's arrest, because yes, the FBI had picked her up at the hotel where she'd gone to hide, I was beginning to piece my life back together. The legal process was complicated and slow, but my lawyer was optimistic that we could recover most of the stolen money and clear my name from the fraudulent debts. What I hadn't expected was the social fallout. It started with whispers at Murphy's Tavern, conversations that stopped when I walked into the room, sideways glances from people I'd considered friends. The rumor mill in our tight-knit emergency services community was brutal, and somehow the story had gotten twisted. The version making the rounds was that I'd been in on the scam from the beginning, that I'd only turned in Bianca and her accomplices when I realized they were about to get caught. Some people even suggested that I was the mastermind behind the whole operation, using my innocent paramedic image as cover. It was Danny who finally confronted me about it on a Friday night in December. "We need to talk," he said, cornering me by the pool table at Murphy's. "Sure, what's up?" "People are saying things, Owen. Bad things." I set down my beer and looked around the bar. Several of our usual group were there, but they were all pointedly avoiding eye contact with me. "What kind of things?" "That you knew what Bianca was doing all along. That you helped her target victims through your contacts at the hospital. That you only turned her in to save your own ass when the heat got too intense." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "You can't seriously believe that." "I don't know what to believe anymore, man. The whole thing is pretty convenient, you know? Your wife and her sister steal a bunch of money, but somehow you're completely innocent? Come on. Danny, you've known me for 8 years. You know what kind of person I am. I thought I did. But $200,000 is a lot of money, Owen. That's more than either of us makes in 3 years. I looked around the room again and realized that this conversation was being watched by everyone in the bar. This wasn't just Danny expressing doubts. This was some kind of intervention or confrontation that had been planned in advance. So what are you saying exactly? I'm saying maybe you should find somewhere else to drink for a while until this whole thing gets sorted out. The betrayal was stunning. These were people I'd risked my life alongside, people I'd pulled out of burning buildings and treated for injuries and covered for when they made mistakes. And they were turning on me based on gossip and speculation. You're kicking me out? We're asking you to give us some space while we figure out what really happened. Sarah, the ER nurse who'd always been like a sister to me, finally spoke up from across the room. Owen, you have to understand how this looks. Your wife steals money from people, and you just happen to discover it right before she gets arrested, and now you're going to get all that money back through the legal system? It's awfully convenient. Convenient? I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice anymore. You think having my wife destroy my credit, steal my identity, and humiliate me in front of the entire city is convenient? We think maybe you're not telling us the whole truth, said Mike, another firefighter I'd considered a close friend. And until you do, we don't feel comfortable having you around. I looked at each of their faces, searching for any sign of the loyalty and friendship I'd thought we shared. But all I saw was suspicion, judgment, and the kind of mob mentality that turns friends into enemies overnight. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go. But when the truth comes out, and it will, remember this moment. Remember how quick you were to believe the worst about someone who's never given you any reason to doubt him. I walked out of Murphy's Tavern that night, knowing I'd lost more than just a marriage. I'd lost my entire social circle, my support system, my sense of belonging in the community I'd served for 8 years. But I'd also gained something, a crystal clear understanding of who people really were when the pressure was on. Over the next few weeks, the ostracism spread beyond the bar. Partners at work requested transfers rather than ride with me. Hospital staff treated me with cool professionalism instead of the warm camaraderie we'd shared for years. Even my landlord started giving me suspicious looks, probably wondering if I was going to skip out on the rent. The irony was bitter. I'd spent my entire adult life helping people, saving lives, being the guy who showed up when things went wrong. But the moment my own life fell apart, everyone assumed I must be the villain of the story. It was Rick, my friend from the police department, who finally gave me the information I needed to fight back. I've been doing some more digging into your wife's operation, he said when we met at a different diner across town, and I found something interesting. What kind of something? Remember how you said people think you were in on it from the beginning? Well, I found evidence that proves you weren't. He slid a folder across the table. Monica and Bianca were planning this for over a year before they made their first move. I found emails, text messages, even recorded phone calls where they specifically discuss how to manipulate you without you realizing what was happening. I opened the folder and started reading. The documents were devastating, not just because they proved my innocence, but because they revealed the depth of the conspiracy against me. Monica and Bianca had studied me like a lab rat, analyzing my habits, my weaknesses, my blind spots. They'd crafted an elaborate psychological manipulation designed to keep me compliant and unsuspecting while they destroyed my life. There's more, Rick continued. They weren't just stealing from you. They were using information about your friends and coworkers to target other victims. Names, addresses, financial information. They got it all through you, without you ever knowing. The full scope of the betrayal was staggering. Not only had my wife and sister-in-law stolen from me, they'd used my relationships to harm other innocent people. and now those same people were blaming me for crimes I'd never even known were being committed. "What can I do with this?" I asked. "Officially? Give it to your lawyer, clear your name in court, maybe sue for damages. Unofficially?" Rick shrugged. "That's up to you." I spent the weekend studying those documents, planning my next move. The legal system would eventually vindicate me, but that could take months or years. In the meantime, my reputation was destroyed, my friendships were over, and my career was probably finished. The old Owen would have waited for the system to work, would have trusted that truth and justice would prevail in the end. But the old Owen had died in a hotel parking lot, watching his wife plan his destruction. The new Owen was going to take a more direct approach. On Monday morning, I made copies of the most damaging documents and started making phone calls. Not to lawyers or police officers, but to reporters, local news stations, newspapers, even a few national outlets that specialized in financial crime stories. "I have evidence of a major fraud scheme that's been targeting middle-class families in the area," I told each of them, "and I have proof that the real victims are being blamed for crimes they didn't commit." Within 48 hours, the story exploded across local media. "Paramedic targeted in elaborate fraud scheme," read one headline. "Wife and sister-in-law steal identity, blame victim," read another. The recorded conversations were particularly damaging. In one, Monica could be heard saying, "Owen's too stupid and trusting to figure it out. He'll make the perfect fall guy." In another, Bianca laughed about how easy it was to manipulate me. "He actually thinks I'm studying real estate law. I could tell him I'm training to be an astronaut and he'd believe me." The public reaction was swift and brutal. Social media exploded with outrage over the case. Monica and Bianca, already in jail awaiting trial, became the faces of everything people hated about white-collar crime. More importantly for me, the tide of public opinion shifted dramatically. The same people who'd been whispering about my guilt were now calling me a hero for exposing the scheme and helping other victims. Danny was the first to reach out, leaving a voicemail that was equal parts apology and embarrassment. "Owen, man, I'm so sorry. We got it all wrong. I should have trusted you. Call me back, okay?" Sarah sent a text. "I feel terrible about how we treated you. Can we talk?" One by one, my former friends reached out, trying to rebuild bridges they'd burned based on rumors and assumptions. Some of the apologies were sincere, others felt forced, but all of them were too little, too late. I'd learned something valuable about human nature in those dark weeks when everyone turned against me. I'd learned who could be trusted when things got difficult, and who would abandon ship at the first sign of trouble. The people who'd stood by me, Rick, my lawyer, a few co-workers who'd refused to join the mob, those were my real friends. The ones who'd thrown me under the bus to protect themselves, they'd shown me their true character, and I wouldn't forget it. 6 months later, when Monica and Bianca were sentenced to federal prison and I'd recovered most of the stolen money, Danny approached me again at Murphy's Tavern. "Things can go back to normal now," he said, as if the last year had been some kind of minor misunderstanding. I looked around the bar, at all the faces that had once been friendly and were now carefully neutral, waiting to see if I'd forgive and forget. "No," I said quietly. "They can't." I finished my beer, left money on the bar, and walked out. I had a new life to build, with new friends who understood what loyalty actually meant. Some betrayals can be forgiven. Others teach you who people really are, and that's a lesson worth remembering.